And for some more perspective on the summit results, let's now have Frank Jannuzi, president of the Mansfield Foundation in Washington, D.C. It's great to have you with us.
Good to be here, Jen.
Now, I don't know, I'm sure you've had the chance to watch the summit results and the joint press conference. President Biden said he was deeply concerned about the ongoing nuclear threat from North Korea, and he appointed a new envoy to open diplomatic channels to North Korea as he met with President Moon Jae-in at the White House. Now, surprisingly to some of us who have been following President Biden's stance on the previous administration's North Korea policy, the two leaders' joint statement reads that the two reaffirmed their common belief that diplomacy and dialogue based on previous inter-Korean and U.S. DPRK commitments, such as the 2018 Panmunjom Declaration and Singapore joint statements, are essential to achieve the complete denuclearization and establishment of permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula. So the mention of the Panmunjom Declaration and the Singapore joint statement, what are you making out of this?
It's a great question, Jen. That did not come as a surprise to me, because in consultations with the administration, it had become clear that although they support the Singapore Declaration, they realize that the Singapore Declaration by itself does not provide a sufficient foundation upon which to build true peace and security on the Korean Peninsula. You need to also bring in the Panmunjom Declaration on enhanced North-South relations. And they might also have referred even to the Jo Myung-nok Clinton joint statement dating back to the Clinton years, or to the six-party statements. When you take the totality of these agreements, then you have the right kind of foundation upon which to build a diplomatic initiative. I think it's a very welcome sign, however, that the Biden administration has chosen to explicitly reaffirm the Singapore Declaration. They are not throwing away the statements that Trump was able to negotiate. They want to build on them.
Now, another surprise, if you will, for us actually, was the on-site appointment of Sung Kim as U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea at the joint presser, with the official name of that position being announced with the term DPRK. Of course, Sung Kim, as we all know, he served as U.S. Special Representative for North Korea policy, and he was also the U.S. Special Envoy for the six-party talks. He was at the center of North Korea negotiations since the Bush administration. What are the implications of this to U.S.'s North Korea policy?
In the choice of Sung Kim, Biden has reached out to a veteran career diplomat. So this is not some sort of a part-time amateur. This is a serious guy. I helped him through his confirmation hearings when I was working for Senator Biden on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Sung Kim was a more junior diplomat. And Sung Kim is the kind of diplomat who will bring not only deep knowledge about the whole negotiating history between the United States and DPRK, but also a keen awareness of Washington politics and how he must navigate not only with the DPRK and closely coordinate, of course, with Seoul and also with Tokyo and Beijing, but frankly, he also has to negotiate with Congress. And in the context of trying to forge peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, he has to bring along the Congress as well. And Ambassador Sung Kim realizes this. He's an extraordinarily savvy diplomat. He's a modest guy. And I think that he is an extremely wise choice by the administration for this very sensitive diplomatic job.
Now, as we were all closely looking for more clues about the Biden administration's North Korea policy review, its pragmatic approach to North Korea, we know that it now is willing to engage in diplomacy with North Korea. However, President Biden drew the line to possibly lifting the sanctions and meeting Kim Jong-un himself because he did not want to, quoting him, give him that international recognition without the commitment of serious commitment to giving up a nuclear arsenal. What are you reading into this?
I think the Biden administration is trying to find the Goldilocks sweet spot. They don't want to be as flamboyant or as aggressive as President Trump. There won't be any fire and fury rhetoric coming out of the Biden administration. On the other hand, they really don't want to be as passive or as sort of, on the sidelines as sometimes the Obama administration found themselves. So they're looking for the sweet spot in the middle, the approach that is just right. The problem, of course, is that North Korea is not a little girl lost in the woods, for your viewers who understand the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. North Korea is a country that has for decades defied the international community's desire to see them comply with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and to fully dismantle their nuclear weapons programs. And we don't know yet how North Korea will respond to the Biden-Moon initiative to restore a pragmatic, step-by-step diplomatic process to the building of peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula.
Now, moving on, as we saw, the alliance this time around, we were able to witness that it goes well beyond the traditional sense of military alliance and really embraces different realms going to, economic, climate change, and technology, and infectious diseases. And while Seoul and Washington vaccine partnership is expected to give a big boost to production in Indo-Pacific region, the two countries also agreed to work closely to build a supply network of chips, batteries, and medicine. How do you assess the scope of their alliance expanding to other fields critical to security, and how would the regional players be observing this?
Jen, if you were to say 25 years ago that the U.S. and the Republic of Korea would be global partners in manufacturing and distributing a high-quality vaccine to the world to address a pandemic, or that the U.S. and the Republic of Korea would be global partners in promoting resiliency and sustainability of a high-tech supply chain, one that we can rely upon in times of crisis, one which will not be subject to political disruption, I think people really would have raised an eyebrow. This is a sign of how far the alliance has come, that it's truly now a global alliance across many sectors: space, pharmaceuticals, high-tech, cyber. And it's not just a military alliance focused on preserving peace on the Korean Peninsula. It's really an alliance for good across East Asia and the Indo-Pacific, and really around the world. And it's a testimony to just how quickly the Republic of Korea has advanced technologically, economically, as well as on the security realm, that they are now able to play that kind of a global role that used to be the preserve only of America's NATO allies, or perhaps Japan.
Now, President Moon happily announced the abolishment of guidelines on South Korea's missile use that had been in place over the last 42 years. What significance does it hold to South Korea-U.S. alliance, and how will its Asian neighbors respond to this?
Well, this is a pragmatic adaptation to the changing situation in Northeast Asia. Frankly, it was long overdue. Because North Korea's missile capabilities have grown to the point where it makes sense for the Republic of Korea to be capable of producing a survivable, legitimate deterrent to that threat. And China won't like it. Japan won't like it. But the reality is that the Missile Technology Control Regime, MTCR restrictions, which used to bound the Republic of Korea's missile programs, had not kept up with the times and with the changing security environment. Those guidelines, those MTCR guidelines, even were a difficulty in the Republic of Korea deploying the Global Hawk drone surveillance program. This is an unarmed drone surveillance program, which nonetheless was subject to these MTCR guidelines. So I think it's an adaptation to reality. but it's one which will not be welcomed in Beijing and probably won't be welcomed with any sort of fanfare in Tokyo either.
How about this cooperation and partnership that we are seeing in this joint statement? They have committed to strengthening their partnership in civil space exploration and science. What is this and what does it signify?
You know, for the last 7 years, I've been proud to co-chair a U.S.-Japan space forum celebrating the deep cooperation between the United States and Japan in space. And we haven't had South Korea as a partner in that yet because South Korea's only space ambitions were quite limited until very recently. But this is a very exciting development for the Republic of Korea. And by joining the Artemis project in particular, and I'll note here that Artemis, one of the goals is to put women on the moon, not just men. By joining the Artemis project, the Republic of Korea is really signaling its arrival as a global player in the space, the peaceful exploitation of space. And this has enormous scientific, commercial, as well as security implications for the Republic of Korea, because as they develop spacefaring capabilities, the Republic of Korea, private sector companies, universities, and the government are going to develop better Earth observation satellites, better communication satellites, and capabilities that are really going to bring the ROK more global.
I think that's my favorite one. I love it, women on the moon. And of course, no official word there was about the regional unofficial forum, the Quad, but it appears that the elephant is always in the room. There is this sentence here in the joint statement: the two acknowledge the importance of open, transparent, and inclusive regional multilateralism, including the Quad. Now, how can South Korea really keep up with this Quad sort of multilateralism going with the U.S. and its allies, but not officially stepping in?
Well, Jennifer, you mentioned that there were some things in the summit document that surprised you. This was one that surprised me. I think that the Quad, the key thing to understand about the Quad is that it is not a treaty alliance. The Quad is a more informal grouping of nations who are determined to work together in certain areas where they believe that multilateralism holds the key to solutions, whether that's promoting freedom of navigation or helping to fight cybercrime or helping to advance democratic norms and values. And I think it's very good for the Republic of Korea to explore ways in which it can participate in such functional multilateralism. It's not the same as joining some kind of a treaty arrangement, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with containing China or anti-China. This is an opportunity for the Republic of Korea to pick and choose ways in which it wants to join with other nations to address problems which are inherently multinational, like climate change.
Right. And last but not least, going back to the vaccine provision or support, if you will, South Korea and the U.S. have agreed to form a comprehensive vaccine partnership here with President Biden vowing to provide vaccines for 550,000 Korean soldiers, which is enough to cover the nation's entire military. Now, this marks the first time the U.S. has offered COVID vaccines to a foreign military. And of course, I know that there had been a lot of debate about provision of vaccines to South Korea here. But that falls short of South Korea's expectations on vaccine swap. President Moon Jae-in had been under a lot of pressure going to the U.S. about vaccine procurement. How do you assess the level of South Korea-U.S. vaccine cooperation this time around?
Well, it's a step in the right direction, Jen, but frankly, I was a little disappointed as well that the president was not able to advance a more ambitious proposal. I will say, as a citizen of the United States living in Baltimore, Maryland, where still at this stage of the vaccine rollout, less than half of the citizens of Baltimore have been vaccinated. I hope that our friends in Korea will appreciate that even though the United States is in a comparatively very strong position in terms of vaccine rollout. The American citizens still expect their government to look out for them first. And so I hope that week by week, month by month, the United States is going to make more and more vaccine available to the global market and to our friends overseas, because it's in our interest to do so. But I think that we're going to have to be patient. And this is a step in the right direction, but frankly, more needs to be done.
And last but not least, Frank, President Biden closed the joint conference or his statement with K-pop and of course Parasite winning Oscars last year and Minari supporting actress Yoon Yo-jung winning the Oscar this year. Does President Biden, and because you are a close confidant of his and you've worked with him for many, many years, does President Biden know K-pop? Does he know BTS? Does he know Blackpink?
I don't know if President Biden knows BTS, but I can promise you that his grandkids do, and that they've spoken to him about BTS and other K-pop bands. And what I was struck by, having worked for Biden for 12 years in the Senate, that press conference with President Moon was very warm. And Biden was genuinely feeling the warmth and the friendship that had been created through his meeting over many hours with President Moon. And Biden's understanding of the importance of Korean culture in America, that I can promise you he knows about from the days when he drafted a resolution celebrating the very first Korean immigrants to the United States more than 150 years ago now, I think. And President Biden genuinely understands and appreciates that across every cultural domain and scientific and learning, medicine, law, and government, Korean Americans are really contributing to the health and well-being of the United States. And he wanted to share that with President Moon and with the world.
All right. Frank Jannuzi, president of the Mansfield Foundation, thank you so much for your insights, expertise, and for sharing your stories with us as well. Thank you.
감사합니다. Thank you so much.
감사합니다.